Into this pine plantation today. I'm going to be looking for some roots for cordage. I've come away about 1.5 feet away from the tree and I'm going to start scraping to see if we can come across a root. They're quite shallow rooted, so we should come across one reasonably quick. Once you've found the tail end, or if you don't find the tail end, use a digging stick and work either side of the root you want. The good news about this, once you're on the floor, you start finding other ones, so you can trace them as well. Resist the temptation to pull too hard, because they'll generally break off on you. Chop them off where I got him. This is the original one it was on. Obviously tug where it's necessary. Just try not to do it too much. Fortunately, it's quite a long one. Dig up the other end there. Following up. Amazing, when they disappear, they bloody disappear big time. Oh, that's just as well. Actually on the... Okay. Going from here, all the way down the tree, to this fine end. And where it's attached to the main root, which is too thick for our purposes, we're just going to cut it off. Any other ones what are available, cut them too. Once we've got our root, we need to process it. We could remove the bark from the root, but I've never found this necessary for shelter building. In fact, there's a preservative in the bark what will make it last longer. But we do need to soften these fibres up. And how we do this, put it around a tree and just work the root a little bit. Particularly the fatter end, because that's going to be the most stiffness. The other way of doing this is putting them in a pan of boiling water and soften them that way. We do the front and the back of the root, so the fibres are well broken. And a way of telling if they're about there is if you can curl it. Now this could be put up and stored for later or for immediate use. Today is an Arctic lean-to. So I've erected a ridge pole in these two trees. I'm going to secure them with the root we just cut. I've put on a couple already. This is for extra security. You go around ridge pole and try to latch it on as many times as possible. And what is meant by that is how many twists you can get around each other. So if one slips, there's a second one to catch it, and so forth. So there's my first one. Bend the root over on itself now and tuck it under the original fasten. This should lock it off. And again. Fasten off the root. We're going to come over the main branch to lock it, to stop it from slipping. And with the root, because we can't use conventional knots, we're going to lock it off against itself. We're going to come off through there. And ideally, do this as many times as you can get away with. So if one slips, the other one catches it. It is natural materials, not nylon. So better to be on the safe side. So, Arctic lean-to. Got a ridge pole. With the Arctic conditions, we want to try to get off the ground. So we're going to have a raised bed here. So we don't need to use this scrub. It's going to be on our way. So we need to clear that. And basically, working your way down, away from the shelter, bringing out the wood. This won't go to waste. It'll either be used for other bushcraft items or firewood later. Right, we've been processing a few pines for our shelter now. Processing pines, hard work. You get hot. You can see my hat's gone now, the shirt's off. I don't want to be over sweating, dehydrating. That makes you tired, and that's when mistakes happen. So you want to be better off to be a bit cooler than a bit hotter. The moment I stop, the jacket and hat goes back on. But this is how we do pine. We start on the far side of us and trimming down the nodes. If the knife slips, it's going to slip into the tree and not us. We're always working a few feet behind us. When it comes to the other side, if you're handy with your own hand, you can do exactly the same. If not, work up the tree, but on from the other side. This will prevent the blade from bouncing and going into you. So it's a safe working practice. And once I've done both sides and the top, I'll lift the bar up and work underneath, processing it that way. With these lighter ones, this is the safest method of all. Almost all the way through. There we are. Pine processed. The reason we process the pines in the back area is to leave us these spruce boughs available for thatching. And when we've got enough and this entire shelter's poled, we'll start at the bottom and start thatching our way up. This way we don't have to go off hunting for this thatch anywhere else. It's two hand. So we're going to thatch. We thatch from the floor up, not the other way round. So when we get to our second layer, which is going to be slightly higher, this will help the rain to shred. And all these little needles will act like little tiles, making the rainwater come down the slope, which is around 90 degrees, rather than through the roof and onto you. Okay. Where's your knee right here?
That's it.
Oh. Oh. Right. I've nearly finished the shelter now. A bit more pan over there. So now it's a case of putting the thatch on. Halfway through building it, the wind picked up and started coming from that direction. So there's no point building the shelter any further facing the other way. That's the prevailing wind. You need your back to the prevailing wind. The only downside is we've got to move all our thatch behind now. The best way of doing that with pine is find a couple of the big boughs and they naturally curl. See that curling up? Put the round bit on the floor and then fill up the bough with your material. And if possible, try to keep the sticks to one end. So when it comes to thatching, you only have to work with one end, thatching it a little bit quicker and easier. And with the bough being round, it'll act like a little sledge for you, making it easier. And there I am, finished the shelter now. Got a nice raised bed here with quite a thick bar here. This is so when I'm not laid down, I can sit nice and comfortably and enjoy the fire and just have a relax and have a cup of tea. Okay, the raised bed takes a lot of work to make. You've got to go off and find the hazel, cut the sticks, shape it, mould it, set it any way you want it to get it off the ground. And I've put a lot of these spruce boughs on top. It makes it very comfortable and springy. I've put a thickness up here for it acts as like a pillow. But the most important thing about beds and shelter building, you're going to be living in this. If you're in a true survival situation, you're going to be in it. You may be in it for a long time, and to keep your rest is very important. You can't keep on being cold, hungry, and uncomfortable because that wears your morale out. You burn extra calories, and that eventually starvation, depression, and they'll all add to your death. Basically, there's no two ways about it. So it's very important to be comfortable and relaxed. Save the calories in your body and keep a good frame of mind. At either end of the shelter there's gaps. I obviously made this a little bit bigger than needed because I had the materials and filled the space between the trees. But the gaps between those and under the bed is a great place to actually store firewood and particularly kindling and tinders ready to relight the fire the next day. So it'll be well used. Plus equipment and extra clothing can be stored at the end of the bed.